It was not supposed to be this way. The games were not supposed to look like this. We were supposed to see some type of change, some type of growth, some type of competency for the Charter franchise and the Chicago Bears. And so far, in the first 2 weeks of the 2025 NFL season, we have seen nothing but bad, undisciplined football from the Chicago Bears as they fall to 0-2 in the season after losing to Detroit Lions in Detroit 52-21. I'm your host, Mike Mercado, here on the Sports Cubicle and Sports from the Couch on WCPT 820 AM, HeartlandSignal.com, WSBC 1240 AM, Chicago, and on YouTube at the Sports Cubicle. And, you look for certain things in the National Football League specifically. In other sports, you allow things to marinate. You allow things to breathe. You give them their space and their time. The NFL doesn't work that way. It's a sprint to the finish line. It's a war of attrition. It's battles that can be won in between the margins. And teams that aren't the favorites every single year or the big dogs of that season, in order for them to be in the race, to be in the hunt, in order for them to have a chance at the apple, to take a bite out of it, where anything can happen in the playoffs, they have to win certain games. They have to come through in certain moments. They have to respond and answer after bad weeks, after bad moments. And whether it's this regime or regimes in the past, the Bears have not been able to do that. On Monday Night Football in Week 1, when you let a victory out of your grasp to a division rival, who, by the way, looked horrible on Sunday Night Football, and then you respond on the very next week, the homecoming of your new head coach, the guy who was supposed to have ran that entire offense that was going to be stagnant now that he's gone, you give up 52 points to them. Oh, on the other side, if things weren't that much better, I think Caleb played pretty okay. I think Rome Odunze had a breakout performance even after missing and dropping some balls. But there are glaring problems on the defense and offense that attribute to the fact that you're 0-2 and you gave up 52 points in an NFL game only in the second week of the season. So, here we don't like to do all the stats because that's something you can do if you're into gambling, your pick six, your confidence picks, fantasy football. You know what the stats are. Caleb Williams goes 19 for 30, 207 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Tyson Bagent gets into the game himself. Rome Odunze with 7 catches, 2 touchdowns, 128 yards. How about Jared Goff looking like an MVP? 23 of 28 for 334 yards, 5 touchdowns. Jahmyr Gibbs, 12 carries, 94 yards, and a touchdown. David Montgomery, 11 carries for 57 yards and a touchdown. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 9 catches, 115 yards, 3 touchdowns. Jameson Williams has himself 2 receptions, only 2, but 108 yards and a touchdown. And you saw Tesla, however you say it, if you have to do the law at the end, had a big catch, an impressive catch, and Wright, Laporta, everybody else got involved as well. But let's get into what I wrote down, right? I always have my handy-dandy notes, just moments, vibes, things that happen out of that game. Because I think, as you all know, we all know, numbers can lie, stats can lie. It's not all just set in stone type of things. So one of the first things that I wanted to circle is, what do the Bears do well? Every NFL team, or most NFL teams, unless you're in the bottom of the barrel type of team, do something well. Special teams, defense, offense, they blitz, coverage, the running game, their tight ends, whatever. If I were to ask you, after 2 weeks, 120 minutes of NFL football, what do the Chicago Bears do well? They get penalties. They get in their own way. They give up a lot of points. They get no pressure on the quarterback. They can't keep pressure off of their own quarterback. That's what they do well, but nothing beneficial for the team. So after 2 weeks, my question of what do they do well, who does that fall on? The players, the coach, or the front office? And speaking of front office and coaches, why aren't second rounders playing? Where's Luther Burden? Where is Loveland? Where are Turner and all these different guys that you drafted in the second round in the NFL? Second rounders help teams, not just with depth, but winning. And people Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson picked are not playing. Have no impact on the game, are healthy scratches. And where are those tight ends? Where are Loveland and Kmet? Where is this advantage that everybody was talking about as we headed into this season? That we were promised these unique disguises and offenses that were going to involve the tight ends. I haven't seen any. Where are they? Is Caleb missing the tight ends? Are the tight ends not running the right routes? Are the schemes not there for them? Because I'm pretty sure Loveland was a draft pick of Ben Johnson. So we can't say they weren't scouted and beloved by their own guy. Where are they? Where are your tight ends? But you know what's a bigger mystery? You know what I can't find right now? Is the running game of the Chicago Bears. Because it's non-existent. And again, you don't even have to go onto ESPN, Pro Football Reference, any of your fantasy stats, DraftKings, FanDuel, to see whether DeAndre Swift hit the over-under. It doesn't matter because there's no impact to it. The running game is non-existent. And to run the type of offense that you hope Ben Johnson was going to bring to Chicago, you need to have an effective running game. Do they have that? No, they don't even have Roshan Johnson out there. You have Caleb Williams trying to sneak the ball 2 different times on the 1-yard line. It makes no sense how this roster was constructed, knowing when you brought him in how it already looked. And you didn't address the running back position and is bitten you twice already. And you had an opportunity to. There were plenty of veterans out there that could have made some form of an impact in that running back room, and they decided not to. A concerted effort not to. That's something that you're going to look back at this season, and if you're looking for one of the biggest flaws of the 2025 Bears is the running back room. And another room that is disappointing in a different reason has been that secondary. And most of it is due to injury. It's decimated right now. You don't have Gordon. You don't have Johnson. Jalen Johnson and TJ Edwards are both getting re-injured. The hamstring that was bothering Edwards and Jalen Johnson's groin injury reemerge when they're reactivated in their first game back. And now a defense that isn't getting any pressure, that isn't turning over the ball, that is giving up a bunch of points, loses some stalwarts. You have a decimated secondary, and you're getting absolutely nothing from your defensive line. You're getting absolutely nothing from Montez Sweat. Where has the Tez effect been? Where has it been? J.J. McCarthy looked great. Jared Goff looked like an MVP. Where is this defense? Is it on Dennis Allen? Is it the rotation he has on the defensive line? Is it the players themselves? And the other side of the Chicago Bears line is just as bad. And they put a lot of money onto that side of the football as well. Do you feel like they're protecting Caleb? Do you feel like they're getting into the next zone, into the next layer, into the next tier? No, they're not pushing anybody away. They're not protecting. They're not giving out pockets. They're not giving out running lanes. You're not seeing any of that. And that was a position that was so desperately needed to be fixed, was addressed, and still is failing the Chicago Bears team. You can't win football games with both sides of your line playing poorly, and you can't run the ball because of an effect of that. You have no time of possession, so it's not like you even gave your defense enough time to rest. And that rotation in the front line of the Bears defense looks gas by the end of games. So, as we are breaking down a 52-21 loss to the Detroit Lions in Detroit for the Chicago Bears, now going 0-2 here on Sports from the Couch and the Sports Cubicle. I'm your host, Mike Mercado. We're on WCPT 820 AM, heartlandsignal.com, WSBC 1240 AM, Chicago, on YouTube at the Sports Cubicle. Giving up 50 points is unacceptable. If it wasn't for the fact that this is a brand new coaching staff, heads would be rolling. There would be immense pressure on everybody in this organization. But the simple fact that it's week 2, going on to week 3 of this new head coach and his staff, and the new vibes of Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles and all these people getting new contracts, there won't be any consequences. I don't believe we should be having conversations of benching this player for this player. I think we should have to come to some realization that Roman Dunze is your number one. DJ Moore is still a great professional wide receiver, could be a wide receiver 1 for a lot of different teams. But if your team is going to be bad, do you move on from him? Do you move on from Montez Sweat? There has to be some consequences somewhere. Ryan Poles, somebody has to get their head shoot out. 50 points is unacceptable in the NFL. Not when you were talking about winning games and being competitive. So what's next? What's next? After giving up 50 points, what is next for an NFL team that is just reeling right now? That has immense pressure, not only for its big-time quarterback, but its first-time head coach that was desired from everybody in the league. What's next for this team? Well, it's a big-time game against Dallas, who doesn't look as bad as we thought they were. That's what's next. And you can't any longer sit here and expect good football. You can't even expect competitive football at this moment right now. People in media, fans, will talk about overreaction. And we'll talk about time and growth and patience. But you aren't dumb, the listener, the viewer, the fan. If you pay close enough attention, if you listen, if you're open to listening to other experts, other people who are as passionate as you are, you know when you see certain things, it doesn't look right for the Chicago Bears right now. Something is off. And I don't think it's the quarterback. I don't think it's the head coach. I don't think it's some of the pieces. I truly believe this team, whether they believed it or not, whether they knew it or not, heading into the draft, after the draft, training camp, or the start of the season, this is a team that's in rebuild mode. And we weren't promised that. We weren't told that. We weren't given the slow ease of finding out that information. We were gaslit into thinking this was going to be a competitive team in a great division. Instead, it's a team that has so many holes still that it's beyond just a good coach coming in and tweaking a thing here or there. I think the realization has come to Ben Johnson that this is a poorly constructed roster that has some talented pieces that he could do some things with, but they are far from competing. Now, it's the NFL. You can still win 7-8 games. It happens. The margin of victory is as thin as a razor blade. But it doesn't mean that you're crazy, I'm crazy, that we're not seeing what we see. That we are seeing a team that is in desperate need of a rebuild when it actually came to on the field and we were told something different. We were promised something different. We were sold something different. I don't think this is a bottom of the tier team in the league. I think there are some bad teams in the NFL. There always are. But this isn't a good team. And quite frankly, this is a losing organization. So we shouldn't be surprised that it's going to take a long time. Or at the very least, it's not going to be the quick turnaround we see on other organizations, because that's not what happens for the Chicago Bears. That's not what happens with the McCaskies in charge. So it might be a little bit of a slow grind for a Ben Johnson to make his effect if he's the guy, if Caleb is the quarterback, because they have to overcome so much dumb that is this Bears organization, the way they manage things, the way they handle things. We've talked about the time of the Ben Johnson hire. Clean starts. with the Eberflus era. Like, this is a bad organization. So none of us should be sitting here dumbfounded or with our scratching our heads saying, how did it end up like this? Because it's the Bears. And they constantly are tripping over themselves. So now what's the expectation going into next week? Don't embarrass yourself. That's where we're at right now, heading into week 3 already. Heading into week 3 of the NFL season, you already know that the Bears won't win the NFC North, and there's a great chance they're going to embarrass you in front of the nation. I want to know your thoughts after the Bears fall to 0-2 in the season, losing to the Lions 52-21 on Sunday. Things aren't looking good for the Chicago Bears, for Ben Johnson, for Caleb Williams, but I'll leave you with a positive. Roman Dunze is a true number 1 wide receiver. Caleb Williams can make some spectacular plays. It's what he does with the mundane the rest of the game that's going to determine the future of the Chicago Bears. 52-21, unbelievable. Bears down to 0-2 with a date with the Dallas Cowboys coming up next week. Let us know your thoughts. What did you think about this embarrassing showing, this mauling that the Lions gave the Bears? We're here on the Sports Cubicle and Sports from the Couch on WCPT 820 AM, HeartlandSignal.com, WSBC 1240 AM, Chicago, on YouTube at the Sports Cubicle. I'm your host, Mike Mercado.